This week on the bonus round, our E3 2015 preview continues with Ben Howard, Sophia Tong, and Andy McNamara. Nintendo won't have a press conference, but what games will they show? Reggie Fils-Aimé and Nintendo promised big things for E3 2015, and now our panel debates what Nintendo will bring to the big show. Hey guys, welcome back to the bonus round. I'm Jeff Keighley outside here in sunny Santa Monica with Ben Howard, Sophia Tong, and Andy McNamara. This week we're previewing E3 and the plans of Nintendo, the Big N. They've announced they're not doing a press conference again this year. They're doing sort of their digital thing with a digital event and Treehouse Live. Let's maybe just talk about that. Andy, starting with you. I mean, Nintendo's idea of not doing a big press conference, is it the right move? Do you think it's progressive? Is it something that, you know, could be done better? What's your take?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I do think it is progressive. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea for Nintendo, you know. It certainly, I think, points to the larger problems with like E3 and its design overall, right? Yeah. You know, I mean, I think I do like them live. I like to have the person in the back that cries when they show the Zelda. Yeah, like exactly. that is missing when I'm watching it in a bar, like in a hotel, right? As opposed to, you know, there
on your phone as you're getting ready to go to E3.
I mean, it's a different vibe, right? You know, and I think it's not that it's necessarily horrible, you know, or anything like that. It's just different, right? And I think that gives them some advantages in that they can make it more entertaining because it's not like a press conference. It is a direct where they're just going to like focus on the games and what their games are about, which is a good message for Nintendo. But it certainly is just extremely different than the rest of E3 and. You know, Nintendo's been singing their own tune for a while now, so it's not shocking.
Right. Sophia, Nintendo's kind of approach to E3 this year with the fan tournament, all these things, it is different. Do you think that speaks at all to kind of the level of news Nintendo will have? They've been very public about saying we're not going to talk about the next console at E3, we're not going to talk about smartphones, it's going to be sort of about our games. What do you think that does to sort of create anticipation around Nintendo's content? They even said that the new Zelda game for Wii U is not going to be there.
Yeah, it's interesting because they've built up all this hype around not showing anything at E3, and they've been doing Nintendo Directs periodically, so the fans are kind of following. They have news, but they're not kind of showing everything. So I'm hoping it's like a build-up to maybe they'll have just a really big Nintendo Direct. The morning on Tuesday. I'm hoping they announce more games for the Wii U. Animal Crossing hopefully will come out. More amiibos. I think everyone. Well, I don't know, depending on whether you collect it or not. There'll probably be more around that. And another new title. Right. Maybe something original. Splatoon. I haven't played it yet much, but I think they can definitely venture out of their usual portfolio and try something different.
Now, Ben, Nintendo's in an interesting spot because certainly the fans that love Nintendo are going to be tuning in and be watching this stuff. They're sort of in a different space now than Sony and Microsoft in terms of competing and the install base of Wii U. What does Nintendo have to do at E3? Like, last year they did really well, I think, because as you said, like Splatoon and Zelda and some sort of really cool games. But what if you're at Nintendo, what do you do?
Well, I think they do two things, right? I mean, they were really smart last year. They got the tone really right. They laughed at themselves in the right way, and they struck a tone where they were playing to the fan base, and they played to the fan base with the games they showed and with the games they announced. And I think if they do the same this year, play to that core audience. They're not talking about the next console yet. They're not going to talk about the mobile stuff that they're doing. They want to make it all about the stuff that the fans are going to be chatting about. I think the World Championships is an example of that as well. It's something that plays to the retro Nintendo fan. I'll be strapping on my Power Glove and making my way down there. So
we'll see you there.
Yeah. So I think that stuff. That's a very clear intention, right? Because the people who are excited about the World Championships are people who grew up with Nintendo, and that's who they're playing to this year, I think.
Right. Now, you talk about games for the Wii U, as you mentioned, Sophia, Splatoon, just coming out now. Zelda was certainly, I think, expected to be the big game. We had a Game Awards last year, and Anuma was like coming out next year. Then he announced it's not happening. So, void of that, I mean, they had Smash Brothers last year. What big Nintendo games are people looking forward to, Andy? I mean, is there anything that's on your radar map right now?
I mean, first of all, I will be a conspiracy theorist to some degree. I mean, I felt like when the Wii U sputtered a bit at the beginning, you know what I mean? I think Nintendo internally is going to continue to deliver titles, but I think it's going to be sparse as far as the number of titles that we get. And I think you see something like Zelda and its delay and it not being there, that in all likelihood that points to, well, we need to get this title on our next platform, whatever it starts to be. They need to hit a next platform in stride, right? I think when we look at like GameCube, which Nintendo will still say was a success, I mean, halfway through, they gave up on GameCube, right? You know, and like we just didn't know that, and I kind of get that same sense from Wii U. So I think they'll continue to try to find titles that they can bring to the space. I mean, you know, maybe like a Punch-Out, something that's not going to take 3-4 years and a big development budget to put together that will keep the fans happy. You know, maybe, you know, I personally would wish for a Metroid. I don't know that they're ever going to give me that, but you could develop a good, you know, a good 2D, 3D Metroid that would fill that space. They don't have to over-invest in Wii U, and I think their fans would love it and would play to that, like Nintendo servicing the people that love them the most, right? And so I tend to think that's the plan going forward for Nintendo, and I think that kind of speaks to where they're at with like Yoshi's and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going. I don't think they're going to announce new hardware, but I think they need to be planning and working now for when they do announce hardware, or maybe not even hardware, a service. In 2016.
Interesting. All right. Sophia, 3DS is obviously a big part of the Nintendo story. Constant flow of content. We tend to go to sort of the big console stuff. Wii U. What's your take on 3DS? Is that a platform that you think still has a lot of life left in it?
I think so. Well, they keep coming up with new models and it's still selling. So I hope they do, because it's such a great system, and now that it's been updated, you can keep the 3D on. Usually I just keep it off. But, you know, like the last Zelda was such a great game, and I wish to just, you know, keep bringing on those titles like Professor Layton, like a lot of things that work really well when you are on the go, and it's small enough, well, at least the smaller one that I still have, is small enough to kind of take with you. So I'm really looking forward to them to keep feeding that library, because I think it will last a long time.
Right. Ben, you look at sort of all the Nintendo content. Amiibo have been, you know, a topic of great debate and discussion. You guys have been covering that on GameSpot, all the shortages and what's going on with Amiibo. What's your take on that phenomenon? I mean, people seem to love to collect the figures. They've been, you know, used in some games. I mean, it's, you know, it's interesting sort of how the functionality of them in the games and
well,
what
the Toys to Life space is obviously developing, you know, month in, month out right now, and it's going to be another big E3 for that space. It's, you know, we have a ton of Amiibo collectors in the office, and we're very much split down the middle in terms of people who think it's a cynical attempt to cash in on Nintendo fans and that collector thing that surrounds Nintendo, the Nintendo fan base, and those who actually think it's a really, you know, a cool way of you know, integrating with their titles. But I think the one thing they need to do with Amiibo is start to demonstrate some real substantial, meaningful content. You know, unlocking skins here and there, and you know, unlocking a little bit of DLC. It doesn't really feel like they've made the Amiibo central to the game experience. And I think if they can do that, you know, obviously now with the new 3DSs, they've got the scanner, the NFC scanner built into it. They can do a lot more with them. And that's why I hope that we get some announcements, not just, hey, here's another 400 Amiibos for you to collect, but, you know, here's some interesting ways we're going to utilize them.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, they have this great bench of all these franchises, and even last year, you know, Shigeru Miyamoto showed a lot of those experiments of other kind of games and the gamepad, like the, you know, security camera thing, and there's lots of stuff that they could do. But you're right, I think everyone's wondering, like, how do Amiibo tie into that? What is that next big franchise? I mean, when you look at E3 overall for all of the big three, who do you guys think who's in the leadership position? Who do you think has, you know, the best shot to kind of win E3? Whose E3 is it to lose, I guess I would say?
Well, I think Sony's going to lose their position right now. I think it's probably Microsoft's, because although they're behind, they've still got everything to play for. And even though they're way behind, it's a critical time for them. We're still only just over 2 years into a cycle. You know, this cycle's going to go a lot longer than we have before, most likely. So I think, you know, it's probably that for them to lose, because they've got everything to play for right now, and they either, you know, make some inroads into catching with Sony, or they end up way behind.
Yeah, I also think Microsoft's probably in the best position, because after coming in from last year, they know what they need to hit to get people interested. And if they're really focusing on the holiday and getting a good bundle out there, like getting the messaging across, because that's where they stumbled upon it in the beginning. So if they get their message out there, I think they can have a really great show.
What's your take, Andy? You know all?
I mean, I don't know that I know all, but I mean, I really feel that, I mean, the PlayStation 4 is where anyone would want to be going into this fight, right? I don't think there's any way around that. I think Sony, like when they make partnerships and moves, like I thought, which was an interesting one, like, hey, let's go to Capcom, let's shore up Street Fighter, right? Let's make that an exclusive, and maybe it's not as flashy as something like Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
But I think to a lot of gamers that plays to that diversity of the platform and what it has to offer. And I have a feeling Sony as a company's not done finding, maybe some unique, smaller, perhaps Japanese titles that they can bring in and kind of focus on to get them into place.
Yeah.
So, we're going to hear a lot of the same things. Like, how many Assassin's Creed trailers are we going to see? We're going to see one at every event except for Nintendo's, right? I mean, there will be one at both, right? And there will be a Call of Duty call out. There will be those kind of what we expect, right? So it's what we don't expect, right? It is if, like, The Last Guardian, which is my personal, like, I'm with you. I want Last Guardian to be there really badly, And maybe, that's not making CNN or anything like that.
Right. But for gamers, it's a big moment. Yeah.
For the gamers, I think that they're going to see that. I think they're going to see something like that that's going to say, hey, we care about you as gamers. We want to make sure we're getting you the entertainment you want. And I think that's what Microsoft has to battle, right? I mean, I think that's why the diversity of their portfolio is really important, and show that they can think outside of the box that they perhaps found themselves in before and expand the horizon of Xbox. And it's all possible, right? I mean, there's third parties out there who want money from first party, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting, but I would be, the Vegas odds I think are a little too high that Sony comes out of this thing still in the lead, still in the spot. I mean, I don't mean to be rude to Nintendo. They're not in the game anymore. It's, I think they can have a great press conference, and they're going to have great games coming, and everyone will be really excited about the 3 or 4 games that Nintendo shows. But they're in a different race. Yeah. And Nintendo's always raced themselves, right? And they will outdo themselves, and they'll bring us some amazing things and wonder. And Miyamoto will scream and yell for him. But really, the race is between Sony and Microsoft, and Sony's in the lead, and it's a long distance to kind of make up in a short time. But that's the thing is, and I'm going a little long here, but I never thought in a million years the Super Nintendo would beat Genesis, right? You just never thought it would come back.
That's what makes this fun.
Exactly.
Like you have no idea, and at E3 there could be that one game that Xbox has on stage that just like blows everyone away and becomes the talk of the show, and that's why we all watch and we get to be there. So it's going to come up in now just a couple of weeks. All right, well, when we come back in the bonus round, we're going to talk about some of the other things going on at E3. Bethesda has their first ever press conference. You're going to hear from EA, Ubisoft. We'll have all that next week right here in the bonus round.